It's hot out there today, guys. I on Tuesdays and Thursdays when available, I take my daughter and she comes into work for about a half day. Um, it's hot out here. So she does things like sorts our hooks, cleans our windows, all of that kind of stuff. Um, when it's this hot though, and this isn't what the video is about, we're going to talk about overhead and how to calculate where you need to be to save or to make money in business. Right now at my shop, it's only 2:30 or 1:30. But we're like shut down already. One, we're a little bit slow on the line side, so and we're waiting on powder for all this stuff here. And then I believe she dropped off more stuff out there. Again, we're waiting on the powder for it. So my bad, I ran out. I didn't realize how much stuff she was bringing, but when it's this hot out, I give my employees the option to come in early. So 2 of the 3 came in at 6 o'clock. So they're actually about done. They're over at the other building prepping parts for another employee who's working a normal shift. Why? I don't know. I'm shutting off all the equipment. So we're going to get into that. That stuff is not cheap to run, and that's part of your overhead. But so yeah, when it's hot, they want to come in early, and it's sticky. It's super sticky. Humidity is off the charts. I think the heat index today is like 105, and then same tomorrow, maybe a little 90s on Thursday. But yeah, so I like to come out and make sure all of my stuff is off. We do leave, there's a little exhaust fan up there. You can't really see it, but we leave that on to pull the heat out of the building all night. But getting your air compressor off, any of your oven components, the burners, exhaust fan, all that stuff will help save money when you're not using it. So yeah, so they're gonna wrap up next door, and then my third employee, he'll be there till the normal time. But man, I don't know if he'll make it. They're over there because it's hot. And I came in with my daughter at like 8:30. We had to go pick up a part from a customer, and drenched. He had already soaked through his shirt. So I will say they're not a sponsor, but this stuff is pretty good. I just bought, like, this was full. It's like a display piece that you would sell. I bought that off Amazon for like 90 bucks. But they just pour it in a cold water, and it's kind of like their Gatorade type deal. So anyways, moving on. Let's talk about pricing out your overhead. If you are working from home, or if you're working from home, you can still do this. It might be a little bit more tricky. But when I first wanted to figure out my overhead in this building that I'm in now, especially when I bought, so the first oven I bought when I was here was 6 by 6 by 12. Gas oven. When I started, an electric oven, which you can do this if you have electric too. So you should have your electric meter and a gas meter. So what I did is I went out there first thing in the morning and I wrote down what the meters were at. So I wrote down where the electrical meter was at and where the gas meter was at. And then I came in, and you could do this. I lied to you, that's not what I did, but I'll go back to that. You can do this a full day, or you could do this like a working production hour. I did an hour because then I could kind of say where I was at per hour of overhead, but you could do it for a whole day as long as you're starting and working that set schedule every day. I did it for an hour because then I can price it out per hour. Otherwise, you just divide it out by, say you ran the numbers for 8 hours, you just divide it by 8. So write down starting point on your gauge, gas, electric, and then you're gonna fire up your equipment. What I actually did is everything was already running. I went out there at like 10 o'clock and tracked it till 11 o'clock. I took the usage off of that, did the math, and I calculated it by my rate. So I don't think I have a bill sitting here. I don't. But you will have an electric bill, a gas bill, whatever you're using. You should be able to figure out your rate per, however it's measured, kilowatt or whatever it may be, and then, or therm. I don't know. I don't remember how they do gas. Not something I'm worried about this moment. But you'll take that number, whatever you use during that hour, and you'll do the math on it, and that's going to tell you your electrical usage and your gas usage for that hour. Now, if you have things like a fridge, lights, computer, you know, whatever else you might be using, electrical tools that plug in, anything like that, a heater, air conditioner, have everything running, because that's all overhead costs. So everything you would normally be doing, you could do this for a winter and summer at the high end if you want, but that'll give you an idea of what it costs to operate your business from the electrical and gas standpoint. The next thing you want to calculate is any labor or what you pay yourself. This might be tricky if you don't pay yourself a set salary and you're just taking profits out of the business. That's how I kind of operated at first. I did it horribly, and I do not recommend this. It's a horrible thing to get into, but I would run my business every week, and then I would say, here's what I spent this week, here's what I made this week, here's what I need to keep for the business, and then I would pay myself whatever was left over. The reason I think that's bad is because sometimes you don't push as hard during the week to make sure you have the business you need to meet those goals. Right now in my business, I have a set salary I pay myself every 2 weeks. So, well, not every 2 weeks, it's the 15th and the 28th of the month. My employees are paid every single Friday. So take the salaries, whatever you're paying, and do the math on it. If you have employees that are on payroll, you're going to be paying payroll tax, unemployment, and all that stuff. You have to do the math, figure out what it's costing you per hour. I think roughly, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't care if you do, I think you can multiply that by like 30% and it covers almost everything. All right, the first shift is gone. We're gonna see what's going on over here. So once you have your employees stuff, God, it's hot over here. We need to get a temperature gauge. I wish you could feel it through the, looks like he's got parts ready to dry. We gotta redo those. Just so you know, you gotta be super careful when you take parts out and there's yellow paint floating in the air. If they are hot, it will land on them, the specs will, and it will melt. So my new guy learned that the hard way today. Parts are gonna go back in for rework, get dried from being washed, and then he's got another rack ready to coat. There's a bunch of yellow parts where we learned another lesson the hard way when I wasn't here. Yellow's tricky. Sometimes you gotta coat it, put it in, gel it, pull it out, and see if you're light or if you have edge pull. So we've learned 2 good lessons today when it's 100 plus degrees out. It's a lot of fun, but that's part of the learning process. I wish I had a better manual I could give these guys, because like a lot of you, we learn things the hard way, even when we don't have to. So think about your other costs when you have air compressor, stuff like that. We talked about that. We talked about employees and payroll. The other like reoccurring things, if you have a company vehicle, gas for that vehicle, if there's, or a propane for your forklift, if you have a forklift, if you have like a diesel operated pressure washer that's heated, insurance for your company. If you have a fixed monthly bill, you can take that out easily, divide it by the working days, not by the not working days, but by your working days. So usually 20 to 22 days a month, you can divide that out and it'll tell you how much you are spending per day. Divide that by 8, it will give you how much you're spending per hour. And then once you have all of these numbers, and this is outside of your consumables, so chemicals, degreasers, powder, plugs, sandpaper, sand, oil, whatever you may be using, this is outside of that. So you're just trying to figure out your overhead. That is a reoccurring cost, and you're gonna divide that all out, get it down to the day, get it down to the hour, and that's gonna give you a base rate of what you're spending per hour. And when you're really small, it's a good time to do it because it's a lot easier to get that number to calculate it than it is once you have, say, 3, 4, 5 employees, and it starts racking up. But you do need to know those numbers too if you have those employee counts. So the last few things that you might need to calculate for overhead if you are spending money on them are any equipment loans, building loans, anything like that. So if you have rent, this would go into that. If you have a mortgage, your mortgage payment would go in that. Again, insurance, any fixed marketing expenses. So if you have a $500 budget a month or whatever it may be, you need to divide that out into a daily hourly rate. Phone, internet, I think that's about it. Like I said before, if you have a vehicle, maybe your gas, but it gets a little bit trickier with variable costs. So you kind of need to average out a month, figure out where you're at, and try and divide that into a day, into an hour. Same with like shop supplies that are not associated with the job. So think of like safety glasses, ear plugs, things like that, things that you can't calculate into the job. It could be like trash bags, things like that. So this is where it gets super complicated. So like those nickel and dime things, you may be able to just kind of fluff into the numbers by adding like taking your overhead costs and putting like an extra 10% in for miscellaneous, something like that. But then you're going to want to just take all of that, divide it out, get your hourly rate. So that will give you a good idea of what you spend per hour, per day, per month. And now you have a really nice baseline at where to start pricing out your powder coating service. So it's not, you're gonna find out that it's probably a lot higher than you think, but it's a great way to start. And then going into pricing your powder coating projects, that's a whole nother story. So now you just know I need to make X per hour to keep my doors open. And it gets more complicated when you have employees. Having one employee, it's not so complicated because you can be like, I have to cover their salary. I have to, whatever that incorporates, if you do benefits or anything like that, their salary, electrical, gas, all of the overhead, all that kind of stuff, and you can figure it out. But when you add employees, the amount of money that employee can make you per hour changes the whole thing, which we can get into on another video. That's becomes very complicated. And you start thinking about these companies, you know, we sell powder coating equipment to companies that have 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 employees. It's like the math to figure out how much work you have to get done to cover all that overhead and employee costs is insane. So we're just going to start slow now. I'm going to kind of wrap this video up, but maybe if you guys comment, let me know down below what you think. If I missed anything, number one, for expenses, or if you guys have done this and calculated your overhead, let me know where you guys are sitting at. So back when I first did this, I had came to the realization that we could no longer take a small part and coat it for 10, 15, 20 bucks, because if you trace that part through your shop, when you take it and you go blast it, say it only takes 10 minutes to blast it, now you're bringing it out and you're hanging it up, and from the time you grab that part to the time you hung that up, maybe it was 15 minutes, and then you wash that part. If you're gonna phosphate it, rinse it, dry it, another 5 minutes, put it in the oven, another 10 minutes, but you're locking up your oven for 10 minutes now. You can't do anything with that oven. Yes, you can go while that's doing that and start the next part. It's all about being efficient, obviously. But then that part comes out, it takes another 10 minutes to cool that part, and then it goes into the booth and it takes 5 minutes to spray that part, but now you have 5 minutes to change the color on the gun, maybe at the front and the back, so that's 10 minutes, so that's 20 minutes. By the time you start adding all this stuff up, painting something this big can take over an hour. Just in an hour in this object's time, not necessarily your time, because, well, it's in the oven, or doing this, or cooling down, you can be doing something else. But you have to account for that. And now when you start stacking employees on top of that, you've got Jim here, who's working on this project, so he started this, it went into dry, now he's working on this, and then this gets put on the back burner when this comes out. He goes back to this while it's cooling, and then he goes and coats this, and then this one's now going into dry, and now this one's waiting to go into cure. You've got to figure all that stuff out. You got to see where the time is. But then if you add another person, they can be helping load that next cart. Maybe Jim's now just painting. That's all Jim does. So Jim's a lot easier to account for his overhead because all Jim's doing is painting. Well, this guy's loading carts, washing carts, moving carts, and all that stuff. So as you add employees, it complicates it, but your margins can go up because you can get a lot more done. So leave comments down below. Let me know what else I missed, what you want to know, how I could break this down even more. If you want to see visual displays of money on a whiteboard or anything like that, just let me know. These videos are for you guys. I'm going to try and crank out one every single working day. And yeah, that's what I got. Make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment, even if it's just like a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm so much. Get these videos out in front of more people. The business advice works for not only powder coaters, but anyone who has to figure out their overhead to figure out what they need to make an hour. I mean, it's not all about charging per product, but it's how much does my business need to make per hour? How much do I need to bring in for work to keep it afloat and keep it going? And remember, the only way you can fail is if you quit. See you guys later.